in village Biala,
in what
Poland.
country? Poland. Would you spell the city, please?
Bielitz, village Biala, Biala.
And your present age? Today is Thursday, December 14th, 1995. My name is Joel Tellis. I am interviewing Mr. Louis Linker in Tamarack, Florida, USA, and the interview will be conducted in English. Today is Thursday, December 14th, 1995. My name is Joel Tellis, and I will be interviewing Mr. Louis Linker in the city of Tamarack, Florida, USA, and the interview will be conducted in English. May I ask your name and spelling it of it, please?
My name is Louis Linker, Linker.
Do you have any nicknames, Louis?
No.
May I have the date of your birth?
July 10, 1927.
And where were you born, city and country?
I was born in village Biala,
In what
Poland.
country? Poland. Would you spell the city, please?
Bielitz, village Biala, Biala.
And your present age, Louis?
My present age is 68.
And what is your Hebrew name?
Eliezer.
Louis, what languages do you speak besides English?
I speak Polish, I speak German, I understand Russian.
I want to discuss now your family background, all in the pre-war area, prior to September of 1939, in Poland. May I have your father's name?
My father's name is Morris Linker.
And where was your father born, and do you remember his date of birth?
He was born in 1985 in Lopushno, in Poland.
1985, or do you mean
1895.
And what was your father's occupation pre-war in Poland?
He was selling handbags, whatever he could.
And that was his business?
Tried to make a living for his family of 10 children.
Can you tell me the date and place of the death of your father?
My father, he died in Chicago.
And
In
what year was that?
It was 8 years ago.
1987.
Right.
And your mother's name?
My mother is Bertha Brocha Linker.
And where was she born and her date of birth?
She was born in Lopushna also in 1895.
And Lapushna is in Poland.
No, Wojcislaw. My mother was from Wojcislaw.
And the approximate date and the place of her death?
My mother, unfortunately, she died in the concentration camp in Plaszow, and that was in 1944.
I know that you have a relatively large family. You had 9 brothers and sisters.
We were 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls.
I want to just ask you, your wife's first name and her maiden name?
My wife's name is Shirley Linker. Her maiden name is Daren, D-A-R-E-N.
And where was your wife born and the date of her birth?
My wife was born in Chicago,
Approximately.
1931, May 26, 1931.
You and your wife have how many children?
We have 3 children, 2 girls and 1 boy.
And what are their names?
The oldest girl is Lola. The second girl, Maureen. My son, Ellen.
And how many grandchildren do you and your wife have?
We have 13 grandchildren.
And where do they currently reside?
Grandchildren, there are 8 grandchildren are living in Denver with their parents. My other daughter lives in Skokie, Illinois, and they have 3 children.
And your son Alan?
My son Alan is in West Bloomfield, a suburb of Detroit, Michigan.
I want to go back to your pre-war life in Poland. Do you recall your pre-war address immediately before the war?
Yes, we lived in Biala, Brynek 3.
In the city of Biala?
Biala,
Poland.
Bielsko. Biala.
Okay. Can you tell us about your schooling as a youngster in Poland?
Unfortunate, the war started. I was 12 years old, so I did not have much education. However, I did go to grammar school, which I was in, the war started, I was in 4th grade going to 5th grade. There was, in the morning, we start school at 8 o'clock to 1:30. Then from 2:30 to 7 o'clock, I went to a cheder. That was the Jewish school which I got my Jewish education.
And that was all?
That was all
pre-war.
Pre-war.
As a youngster growing up in Biala, what activities did you participate in with your friends and your brothers and sisters?
Actually, there was not much that I could do as a youngster because of the schooling. And we had homework to do, so once in a while I was able to play soccer.
Mm-hmm. When you were in Biala, Poland, did your family belong to a synagogue? Were they active in the Jewish life of the community?
Yes, we are Orthodox Jews, and my father was a Ger Chosed. In fact, the rabbi is in Israel, of course, it's a grandchild from the rabbi.
Mm-hmm. I want to move now to the period starting with September 1st, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. You were, as you say, 12 years old at that particular time.
Correct.
What was the reaction of yourself, of course, as a 12-year-old preteen, and your family, and what was the immediate consequences of your family and the Jews in Biala?
My town, we were very close to the German border. In fact, in this town, that 70% of German was living in the town. And so right when the war started, there was on a Friday, I recall that, and right away they were bombing. Actually not bombing, but the German planes were going through our city, and we went to hide ourselves in the basement. And after 2 hours, we got out, and the plane kept on going through, but there was really, actually, we didn't pay any attention until in the evening we got information that the Germans are crossed the border, and then we will start looking, of course, to run away, the Germans. So there were buses available, whoever wanted to leave the town. And so we got in, even it was Shabbos, Friday night, which we are observant Jews, but the rabbi in town, he said, go ahead, if you could save yourself, you could do it. Of course, we did, and we were going like 30 kilometers from our town, and they were start bombing, and we had to get off from the bus, and from the bus we went to the station in that little town. I think it was Jejits, but I'm not sure about it. And we went to the train station, and there were some cattle trains where cattle were usually. And so we got on it, and we were going a little bit we went a little bit, then they start on bombing. I remember it was towards the evening, it was very cold, but we just didn't mind, we just want to get away from the German. And a little later, well, not later, but later, yeah, the train was bombed, the tracks actually, and we couldn't go any further. So then after 4 or 5 hours, they repaired the tracks, and we kept on going further, and our destiny was Krakow.
Was your entire family all together on the train at this point?
Well, no, actually. What my father and mother decided, that we should divide in 2 parts. God forbid if something happened, it did happen anyway, that we should, so one group will live. So we divided 5 children, and 5 we divided, and my father and I and 4 more, which was Lola, Malker, Fischl, I don't remember either, but it was 5. We were evenly divided, and the other group went with my older sister, and which she was at that time maybe 21, 22, with the sister also, and they took the rest of the children. They left later on. We left around 8 o'clock in the evening on Friday night, and they supposed to stay longer, but they did not, and they left Saturday early in the morning.
And they went a different direction than
They went, we had the direction to go to Krakow and to meet my uncle, my father's brother. And we got in there and we found out that my uncle has only one room, little room, small room, and had a wife and one daughter. But anyway, they made place for us, and we stood there overnight, 1 or 2 nights. Then my sister, the other group, came, also had very much difficulty, but they came 2 days later. And we got, my uncle got us lodging by his friends, and we were...
I'm sorry.
Then, after three days, the Germans, of course, were getting closer. So our destiny was really to go closer to the Russian border and to go over the border to Russia. So from Krakow we went to Tarnów, and my sisters, the other group, went also with us, but they went later. We tried not to be together. Once we reached Bochnia, we had no relative, and we didn't know anybody, so we asked someone where is a restaurant, a kosher restaurant. So they showed us, and we went to the restaurant, and we had luggage with us. And we went in the restaurant, and the owner of the restaurant looked at us, and he said, he didn't have to ask us why or what, where we're going, but we just said that we want to go closer to the Russian border. The next town would be to go to Bochnia, which is a little further, closer to the Russian border. We went, and then the man said, well, ask us, where are you going to stay? I said, we have no place where to stay. And so he said, I am sorry, I have 4 children, and I have also 1 room and a kitchen that I cannot, but you're more than welcome to stay in the restaurant. At that time, I don't know how and what, but my father kept himself always nice, in spite of traveling so much, and my mother, they made it, wherever they went, they really respected him, and he felt bad that he couldn't put us up, but so he said, it's fine, wonderful. So next day, he opened up the place, and we had to go, because the Germans, they got closer and closer. So there was my father found a bus, and he said that he's going to Bochnia. So there were quite a few people. They sat on the bus. He didn't say anything about charge or anything like that. However, the bus was filled up, he got up, the bus driver, and he said, it's going to cost you $200 a person. And at that time, we were actually seven we were. And he said that comes out to 1,400 zlotys. And we didn't expect the war to come out, and we just didn't have the money. And my father, all of a sudden, he started crying. And the people on the bus collected the money. And there was a lot of money, but somehow they collected and they paid the bus driver for us. At that time, I remember I arrived, but I just said to myself, gosh, if I ever live through that war, I'll do anything to work to have money, because I saw that really money is important.
When you got on the bus, you got to Bosnia?
We got to Bosnia, and Bosnia also, we didn't know anybody. We were there like 3 days, 2-3 days. And I remember we were living in a garage, few people more. After 2-3 days, we went, that the train was okay there, to a town named Tarnobrzeg in Poland. This Tarnobrzeg, I think, was about 20 or 30 kilometers from the Russian border. We got in on the train. We arrived to Tarnobrzeg, and at the train station, there was a Jew person came up to me. My father still had his beard and very nice groomed. I mean, he looked very, very presentable. And he asked, where are you going? You have time? I said, no, we have no place where to go. We don't know anybody. Said, well, the only thing I could take you, there is a place which in Poland, they have it here too, like a hospice. This is for people, call it Nossos Orchin, for people who didn't have a place to sleep over, so they took him up there. He took us, he helped us with the suitcases, and we went up there, and down there was, and he said, wait here a little while, I have to go someplace. He went, he said, don't unpack, don't do nothing. Took like 15 minutes, he came in with another person, and he was the president of the Jewish community in that town. And he came up to us and he said, well, I have a different place for you. You, as a family, I have a place for you. He took us, there was maybe a block away, also helped us with the luggage, and he opened up the door, apartment, beautiful apartment, and he says to my father, there's one person, he left the apartment 3 days ago, he also went to Russia, and he told me that if there comes somebody presentable or something nice, that you could give it to him in use, and also whatever is food they could use. Sure enough, we came in, it was a beautiful apartment, and was plenty food. We were so hungry, we didn't eat for 2 days, and really, so my mother, flowers, sugar, I mean, we did sugar and she was starved. That was towards the end in the evening, and she started baking and cooking, and we ate a wonderful meal. And in the morning, we're supposed to leave to go further, the 20 kilometer close to the Russian border. But we got up, we slept so wonderful, and after such a good meal, my mother said to us, well, whatever happened with all the Jews, we'll have to stay, and I just haven't got the strength, the children, to leave and to go. We remain in that town. Two days later, the German, the plane passed by the town, and so I was outside. I was on the street, and I seen a Polish soldier taking out. It wasn't even a machine gun, a gun, and he started shooting at the plane. So once they were shooting at the plane, so then they started bombing, and they really bombed that city really badly. In a few hours, and there was quite a few people I could see on the street with dead people and house bombs and things like that. So they took over. They took over the city. So this is the first time that's the first time we got to see the Germans.
So the Germans occupied the city. Where you were, was your entire family together at that point? All 12 of you?
No, not 12, because we never was
you never were together.
We were two groups. This group, yeah, we were together.
Thursday, December 14th, 1995. The interviewee is Louis Linker, and this is tape number 2. Louis, when the bombing stopped and the German troops occupied the city that you were in, and your family was in the apartment, what happened at that point?
At that point, but 2-3 hours later on, we looked to rent a horse and a buggy to take us closer back to Krakow. However, we got in from Tarnobrzeg by the horse and wagon. We got into a town called Mielec, M-I-E-L-E-C, I think Mielec, or in Poland. Instead of our actually plans was to go to Russia, but we did not make it, so we were going to go back. And this is now what I'm saying, it's going back. We got in the town of Mielec, supposed to be quite a few Jews living in that town, and we seen it's so quiet, you hardly see anybody walking on the street. Finally, we saw a person, and he said, "What's going on?" He said, "Don't ask. Don't ask." The Germans were there 2 or 3 days in that town. There was a slaughterhouse where Jews killed chicken, so a shochet. This is the one who kills the chicken. He had 2 chickens, and the German found out that the Jews, that the shochet was there, and killed the chicken, so the German get it like 60 Jews and the shochet. They put them in that slaughterhouse, and they burnt the 60 people. I might be a little wrong with the amount, 60, and they just burned them to death. This is the first what I found, how brutal the Nazis they were. In fact, I'm living I was in Chicago, and I met a Polish woman, and she was from Mielec, and she was telling me also about that. So I told her that I am the one. I was there at that time. We got Mielec. We're going to go back to Bochnia, and in Bochnia, and we kept on going until we got back to Krakow.
Let me ask you this question. Did your family, in your travels from one town to the other, did you have any confrontation with the German troops? Were you stopped or questioned or interrogated? They want to know what you're doing and where you're going?
No, because the way from town of Jacksonville, we were going through forest. I mean, it was all, there was nobody there. I mean,
so you had no contact with the German soldiers at all?
No.
At this point?
At this point, right. And once from Mielec, we were going to Bochnia, and from Bochnia to Krakow from the beginning. And we had one advantage, that we didn't look Jewish. My mother blonde, and my father at that time already shaved off his beard. And we all didn't look Jewish, so we were going by train and we made it back to Krakow. We got into Krakow. This was already a ghetto. And there we had an apartment. We found an apartment in a shul where the women were davening, and we took over that room, and we were there in the ghetto. from in the ghetto, we went, took us to work. It was not really organized, but whoever walked on the street, they caught you and took you to work. You know, they not beat you up, cleaning street, cleaning their barracks, things like that. They beat you, but they didn't kill you. At that time, there was no killing yet.
So your family together was living in this one room?
Family, yeah, I was still living there.
How did you and your family manage to get food and sustain yourself while you were there? Were you paid for this work at all that you were doing?
No, we were not paid for the work, but somehow there were rationing. We lived from the rationing, and you could buy things in the ghetto if you had money. We didn't have much money, but little bit, very little, and we lived with that. That wasn't too much problem because you didn't eat too much, and so actually it wasn't really a close ghetto.
While you were in the ghetto, did all of your family have a particular job to do?
Like I said, they at random they took people to work, but it didn't last long. Then the German, the Nazis, gave orders to the Jewish community, to the what do you call that?
Leadership
The
of the
leaders,
Jewish community?
the Jewish leaders, that they needed, I don't know the amount for work. So actually what they did, they were sending out people from the ghetto. I don't know if that time there was gas chamber or something. I just don't know what happened. But we knew a few days before that this is going to happen. We didn't look Jewish, so again, we are trying to get away, because usually who do they send out is the Jewish things, people, they're not from town. Then the one, these people went first. So we knew that this was going to happen, and we just ran away, and again, Tarnov, and this is the way we community. And after we found out that this is already true, it took about 2 days, they sent out from there, we tried to come back, because we knew the next town will be Tarnov, will be the rest of it. They didn't do all in one. They went town by town. And from the small towns, they made them come into the big town, and then what they did it. Right, we were lucky that way. In fact, twice we left that ghetto and came back, and so far.
Were they at this point, to your recollection, selecting people from Krakow to go to the camps, to the concentration camps?
No, I think I think they sent them to Auschwitz or Buchenwald. They sent them out something, and some of them they took the older people and the children. They took them and they killed them, or they were gassed. I really never found out that close, what happened. But we know one thing, that nobody came back.
Approximately how many people were in the Krakow ghetto? Do you have any rough idea? No.
Then, from Krakow, from the ghetto. Someone came from another town. Name of the town was
If you can't recall.
a town in the Kamins. Excuse me, I remember now. Kamins. This Kamins is between Radomsko and Częstochow. This person said, "My goodness, you have it so bad in the ghetto. They beat you, they grab you to work, no food, no nothing. Where I am, in Kamins, it's a very, very small town, and we go to work 3-4 times a week, and it's quiet. The Nazis are not going by the city so much. So we had nothing to lose. Partner was nothing. We had nothing. So we sure did go there. The same way, we didn't look Jewish, so we went to that place, Kamins. In Kamins, we went by train. We arrived to Kamins also by train. And same thing, we didn't know anybody, we didn't know, we asked somebody, and they told us go to the Jewish Kultusgemeinde. That's where the Jewish the leaders, the Germans, they selected leaders, and we went into that room because we had to register that you are here. We registered, and there was standing, a few of them, there were about 4 or 5 standing there. We filled out, my father filled out the name, so he heard, the other one, he went over his shoulder and said, Linker. He said, Linker. He said, I said, was your father named Abraham? He said, yes. He grabbed him, and they hugged, and he said, you know, you have a big family. We didn't know about it. You have a big family in this town, and you are going to be taken care of. Sure enough, they sure did take care of us. They gave us apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, which was a lot, kitchen, and brought us up there. This is yours. But he said to us, 1 room, just don't put anything in. We didn't know what he meant, so I figured, well, probably somebody else will put in the room, which was okay too. No? Few hours later, the family came, and everybody came with a sack. They were carrying on their shoulders sack, potatoes, all kind of food, and they filled up that room with potatoes, whatever. And we had it pretty good for the first few days there, and then of course, we had to go to the work. I went, my father and I, and another brother, we were working there, building highways, and from the highways, from big stones, we made small stones, and with that they made the highway. First with the stones, then they put the tar, whatever it was. Anyway, and I was cutting, and I was with a big hammer. The hammer must have been heavier than I was. and they looked at me. That was that time Polak and the German Wehrmacht. That was not the SS. And they looked at me in the way I worked. Unbelievable. So they sent a note. Don't send him. He is too young to work. You know, they were just, you send somebody else. Those people, they had to send like 200 people, you know, so they said, don't send them anymore. So they didn't send me and we were there for about 9 months. And we encountered little things with the Germans, but was still livable. It's a very small town, and maybe because they were all around forests and they would not go there, maybe they would thought it's too dangerous for them to go, and that's therefore we are 9 months. Yeah, prior to that, my brother Philip Fischel, he went to Radomsko back and forth. He looked really, nobody could ever tell that he's Jewish. Blonde hair and very handsome. And he was going. And in Radomsko, he met a person, family actually, wife, and he had 2 daughters. And this man used to work for the Gestapo, not as, God forbid, but he was a tailor, and he was a very, very good tailor. And he was working for the Gestapo for making them the uniforms, and if they wanted something special, he was making for them. Anyway, and he liked it very much. I don't know, my brother was that time 17 years old. He had 2 daughters, maybe figured out. Whatever it was, he liked him like a own son. Got closer. When it got a little close, yeah, the Gestapo told them that they are going to, in that district, they're going to clean up all the Jews and take him to Auschwitz or to Treblinka. There's not too many are going to live. That's the way the Gestapo said. I know he was drunk, but he did tell it. That was the main thing. So right away, this man said, "Oh yeah." First, they took from the small towns to the big town, you know, and they gathered. And from there, they were sending them out. So he said, "Well, would you do me a favor? I do anything. I'll work day and night for you, and make you for your family, whatever you wanted. I have an uncle," which he referred to my father, and we knew this man too already, and I need, how could we save them? So he says, well, we could save them. I'll give you a passport. In other words, as a Jew, that you could go travel from one town to the other for 1 month. Sure enough, he gave us the permit to travel, and we left. And we left. We went back to Krakow, to the ghetto.
Your family, who was all living together in the apartment,
My family
returned to Krakow.
We returned to Krakow. And my brother, Philip Fischel, he also liked that man so much. and he wanted to know what happened to this man. After all, he was for the Gestapo. But unfortunately, they sent that transport to Treblinki, and they killed him with the rest of the Jews. And my brother, yeah, and then he somehow, the train did not go from Radom, so he had to stop off in Częstochow. Oh, I beg your pardon, I have to go back a little bit, because in that small town where we were in Kaminsk, they send out prior to the sending them out the Jews to the Geshem, but they sent out a transport of young people from 18 to 21, and one of my brother, Label, was in that category, and they sent them out, and I don't know today, I was told that they took him to Treblinki, and Treblinki was gas chamber. I don't know if he was gassed right away or he was worked, but I never found. This was the first loss that we encountered, to lose one of the family.
Approximately, when did this take place, that your brother was sent to Treblinka? 41,
That was
42?
that was in 42. That was in 42. And then right after that, about 2-3 weeks, I was telling you, I'm sorry, I went back.
Is when your family then went back to Krakow.
we went back to Krakow.
You were about 15 at this time.
At that time, well, I was 12 when the war started,
49.
and 41, 42, about 40,
14, 15.
yeah.
What did your family do when you returned back to Krakow? The ghetto was still operating.
The ghetto was operating, was very, very hard to get in the ghetto. Of course, we didn't have the apartment anywhere. But we found out that now the leader from the ghetto was from our hometown, Bielitz-Biala, and happened his sister and my sister, they were friends. You could never get apartment in ghetto, you could never legalize, but so my father and my mother went to him, and because he know them, and he said, yeah, I don't have, no, I can't give you anything, but if you want a mashul, I have a place for you. It was fine, and you needed a job too. So he gave my father and my mother a job to work in the papiergme. Being down there, we also tried to get in to work for Schindler's, to work in the making the parts, and also in the clothing. But we couldn't get in. But however, we were happy. My father had that job, and we were, I was cleaning streets and that. And this didn't. 42 years, and then we were there for a few months. And after a few months, they sent me, my father and me, they sent us to a place at the Air Force. And I was working for the German Air Force to clean there, and mechanical work, whatever I could, I did. And we were there 6 weeks. And after 6 weeks, they sent us back to the ghetto,
to
the
Krakow.
Krakow ghetto.
Louis, you began to tell us about your brother Fischel.
Yeah, I am sorry. My brother Fischel wanted to know what happened to this man. What he worked for the Gestapo, and I did say that before, that he went to Radomsko, and then he had to stop off in Częstochow. In Częstochow, somehow, somewhere, they recognize him, and they say they recognize him, that he's, a Jew. So my brother started running away, and they shot and killed him.
And this was at the train station?
At the train station, yeah.
When you and your family returned to Krakow, you were still being forced to do some labor, you and your family, in the ghetto. Was your situation?
Yes. I was working uniform place. I was straightening uniforms for the Gestapo. This was, and in the evening we came back.
The date is Thursday, December 14th, 1995. We are interviewing Mr. Louis Linker, and this is tape number 3. Louis, when your family returned to Krakow, you indicated that you were all working. Where did you go from there after your work in the Krakow ghetto?
From Krakow, it started by the 6th or the 7th of March. We saw that the Gestapo surrounded the ghetto very, very heavy. I mean, it was very bad. After a few days, they said that a couple days before, they came into the ghetto, some of them, and they said, and also leaflets they put out, that on the 13th, at 8 o'clock in the morning, everybody has to leave their house, taking his belonging only a hand. Each one could take a handbag or suitcase and to go on a certain place. There was like a, what will I say? There was quite a large place, and whoever is not going to go, that was in the ghetto, of course, whoever is not going to get is going to be killed, shot, and everything else. Most naturally, we went, not all, some of them were hiding, so they caught them and they killed them, they shot them wherever they found them. Anyway, and they made us to go stand up, and we're 6 rows, in the long rows, one each other, and there was maybe about 2 feet apart. And they were counting, because they knew exactly how much they have, so they knew something happening. Well, anyway, then the Gestapo went around and took out children and older, they told them to go on the side. They came close to us, then they approached me, one of the Gestapo, and asked me, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 16 and a half." I was not, because I knew it, that from 16 years old to 45, they would take you to work, and the rest, God knows what would happen. I said, 16 and a half. He looks at me, "Okay, stay where you are." Then they came, my sister and my little brother. They took him out and put him with the children, with the rest of the, took him out. And so my mother saw what happening. She ran out, and she also went with them. As she went with them, there was a Jewish policeman, a friend of ours, and he did us favors in the ghetto, otherwise for the extra piece of bread. He did us favors, and he pleaded with my mother. He told her, "Please go back the line, because you are a tall woman and you are a heavy woman. I will not be able to save you. You endanger your two children, because I am planning, after settle down, that I will be able to bring the children to the camp, to the camp, Plashu, wherever you go." Well, he spoke so much, and he just physically pushed her back in the line. She should go back to the line. And my other sister, Esther, which she was at that time 19, I think, she said, "Oh no, I'm not going to let my brother and sister by himself. I'm going with them." And she remained with them. And this policeman is still promised that I will take care of them. No problem. We were marching to the Plaszow, to the concentration camp, Krakow Plaszow, and we got in the camp. We were assigned beds, which in each barrack was like 500 people in the barrack. In the bed was like 3 beds, bunk beds, 3 on top of, there was no mattress, anything, like wood and a blanket. And this was our, and we had at that time the suitcase. They didn't take away at that time. No, we went on. But we were very at ease, and very that our three children are missing. And towards the evening, he said, "Well, I have to bring him tomorrow. Today I couldn't do it because the Jewish policemen, they were allowed to go to the ghetto back and forth, because after we left, the German, the Nazi, the Gestapo went around in house by house in bunkers, and where they were taking out those people, and they killed them, the one they were hiding. Next day, they get it, those children and the older people, and they shot them. Most of them, they shot on the spot, at that place. The rest of them, they took him in a forest and shot them there. But anyway, they brought them, the bodies, some of them, they took it to the ghetto, to the concentration camp. Some they did not kill. They made them take off their clothes, and after they took off their clothes, they shot them. We knew something is going on because mine were the place, there was a tremendous place, a mountain, a lower part of it was in, they were throwing them in and they killed them. In fact, from where I was, we could see the killing. We could see the killing. And I still didn't think that it's my family. Until next day, they take me to special work in the morning to take together the clothes. In that camp, we still were in our own clothes. And they took me to get up the assault, shoes, jackets, skirts, and I noticed my brother's belonging and also my sister's belonging. So I knew that they were there, that they were between the ones that were killed that day.
How long was the remaining portion of your family in the Plazow camp?
Well, we were in the Plazow ghetto. We were about, my brother, Label, which he was killed in Treblinki. I don't know really, but they took him to Treblinki. My brother Fischl was shot in Częstochowa. My two sisters and one brother, which were killed in Plaszów, in the ghetto. They never seen the concentration, not Plaszów, the concentration camp. So there was really left over six children and my father and mother. My mother got sick what happening is she couldn't forgive herself that she went back and she was not with the children, she was not shot with them together, that my sister did it for her, that she could live. And it was just terrible what was going on. She got so sick. I don't know what happened. And they took it, there was a hospital there. A hospital, you were too sick. They killed you, they took you out. But she was just one day, and what they did, they operate on her. She died. In fact, I was working that time with my father, and my sister came. My sisters were lucky in Flushing. They had jobs which they were peeling potatoes. So we had a little more to eat than the average person. And she came out and told me and my father that mother is dying. So I was only maybe a block away from the hospital, from the shop where I was working in the Papiergemeinschaft, that's a paper mill. We were making envelopes, cutting paper. And so I just didn't excuse myself. I just ran away, and I ran to the hospital. There was a big no-no, but I came to the hospital. The whole thing took maybe less than an hour. I saw my mother's death, and already they're taking her out to be buried. And there was a special group, 2 people, they carried the bodies, and they buried them. My mother was buried in the same place where my 2 sisters and my brother in Plaszow, must be near there. And when I asked the person who carried the body, I said, would you let me bury my mother? He said, yes, okay. So he let me maybe a block. There was another 2 blocks. He didn't let, that's the far you could go. We take care on that. I had to go back. I ran back to work. After work, I ran, and the one who was burying my mother, I found him, and I said, where did you bury her? Where is she? So he showed me. He showed me the place. I made a little marker, and figuring that I know at least where my mother is buried. I wasn't so. The Germans, they somehow built more barracks, so they straightened out everything. It's and the bones that were thrown. I mean, it's just with. And I just don't know where my mother was. I know she's from Plaszow. And one day, I like to go back to Plaszow. And I have idea where just about she would be. It would be a mile around that. I think I would remember, and I would like to go back. I will go. I hope so.
After your mother's death and her burial, How much longer were you and your remaining family in Plazow?
Not too long, maybe a few months, 2-3 months.
By this time, it was into 1944.
In 1944, right. In 1944, they will start sending out my 3 sisters. They took on a transport. I don't know exactly to this day. Some people say that they put them on a boat to Stuttgart and they drowned them. Some say that they got killed, that they took him in the gas chamber in Auschwitz. I don't know exactly what happened, but I know one thing. I've been looking for that. Nowhere. Nowhere.
After your 3 sisters were shipped away from the camp, it just left you and your father. So there were about 4 of you remaining as a family.
That's it.
Where did you go from Plazow?
From Plazow, they sent us to Mauthausen. And in Mauthausen, we were there maybe 10 days. We did not work there, but it was a terrible, terrible camp. People who worked there, they didn't last more than a few weeks, and they died, killed. It was all with where it was digging stone, breaking stones, terrible and terrible thing. Anyway, from there, they put us in a room, very, very tight. We couldn't stand up, we couldn't get up. We were sitting in each other's lap. We were like this. And no, I was just 10 days, or a few days, 2-3 days. And in the nighttime, a lot of people died. So
but when you got to Mauthausen,
when they died, that's the only relax you could. You lay on their body, and that was your pillow. In the morning, they took us the bodies, to take out the bodies, and they brought new people because always transport used to come. And
when you arrived at Mauthausen, the remaining part of your family was all still together. Is that correct?
There was no one family.
Well, the remaining brothers and sisters and your father, you came together to Mauthausen?
They were lost.
They were lost.
They were just, they were,
So you were in Mauthausen?
I give you again the figures. The first one died in, they took him out, they sent him, they killed him. The other brother they killed on the train. My 2 sisters and a brother was killed in the ghetto to the concentration camp. My 3 sisters, one brother I didn't mention, I forgot. He was in the Polish army when the war started, and he was in Russia. We lost track of him altogether. I know they were in town, and we found out that he was a prisoner, and he ran away from the train, and anyway, this brother, he survived.
So you were in Mauthausen by yourself?
In Mauthausen, I was with my
Your
father.
father.
I was always with my father together.
You were in Mauthausen, you say, about 10 days, and then you were
No,
transferred?
not quite 10 days. I only
Where were you
6,
transferred
7.
following
From
Mauthausen?
Mauthausen, we were sent out to Melk, which is also Austria. Mauthausen out and Melk was up. And we got to Melk, same thing, the barrack, and they gave us, you work, to work, and I was working. There was a rough place. We had, from the concentration, we got up, they woke us up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We stood about 2.5 to 3 hours outside, winter time. It was so cold, so bitter cold. And we tried to put the shirt, what I wear now, this was even heavier, what that, and we tried, some of them put down paper, because from work we had paper, the bag from the cement put in, and if the German caught you with that, they'd beat you up to death, and they pulled out the paper. Some they didn't kill, pulled out the paper, but terrible beatings they got.
How long were you and your father at Milk?
We were about 9 months in, 9 months in Milk. We were working for the cement place. The name of the place is Rela Stoll. It was very, very hard work. Not only hard work, but it's to get to work and come back from work, it was just terrible.
After your period in Milk, you were in another camp?
From Milk, there was already the end. This was already in 45. They sent us to Ebensee. Ebensee, there was also a concentration camp, very bad camp. I was there for 6 weeks, and work was also very, very hard. Beating, no food. I'm going back a little bit. For Milk, we went on transport cattle train, and we were there 70 to 100 people in that cattle train, and no water, no facility toilet. It was terrible, was smelling terrible. And I remember there's next to me a German, a couple. They were all German, also in the concentration camp, some of them. And he died right from me. So I didn't have a cap, and I took his cap and I put it on me.
Cattle car?
Yeah, it's still about the, what did I do last?
The date is
No.
Thursday, December 14th, 1995. We are interviewing Louis Linker, and this is tape number 4. Louis, you were describing your trip from Melk to Ebensee in the cattle car, and one of the occupants of the car had died.
He was he was a couple, a German couple. He was another block. I didn't know what he was. But anyway, I took his cat, and after 3 days, we arrived to the Ebensee, and Ebensee, wearing that couple cap. The German, they told us to stand in line 6, 6, and 5, 20, 100, and it wasn't required. No, 100. 100 was, from the other wagons they also took a film. We stood to 100, and then we had to stay in line. So then a German passed by. You start counting. Why are you standing, you couple? Why are you standing? All of a sudden, because I was wearing that cap, so he thought that I'm a capo. So he told me to stand, they should stay in order, not to move and not to this. I said, okay. And then he gave an order to 6 people from each group to work to take out the dead ones, to take the dead people. Well, anyway, it got mixed up, and I had to take, so what did I take? I took a Polish, a this, and a Jew, there was all nationality in them. And so one of them says, who made you a couple? Who was this? I said, do I touch you? I didn't touch you. I don't do not to say, Anyway, so what happened is that they didn't need anybody. In fact, from my group, nobody went because they had already too much of it. And that time we arrived to Ebensee, but it wasn't so easy. After 4 days, the cattle, it was just terrible, the smell and tiredness and hungry. We didn't eat anything. No water, no nothing. 3 or 4 days, I don't remember exactly. And so we got in there in that Ebensee camp, down the Gestapo down there. There was already older people, the older ones, the young ones. We didn't see no young ones. And looks at me. You're not Jewish, he said. I said, my mother was not Jewish because there was and my father was. I was lying. I just couldn't take it anymore. And so he said, go ahead and you go to the shower, which was a shower. There was no killing that time. Go to the shower. So I stood up and I said, officer, in German, that my father is with me, and I appreciate if you let him go with me. Or, he said, sure, go ahead. Because the other people, they have to wait another few hours, quite maybe 7, 8 hours. A lot of them died waiting to get in to the bed house. And I went in, one of the first ones, and took us in a barrack, the barrack number 23. I'll never forget that. I don't know how I got in there, but anyway, down there they took the people who couldn't move, they couldn't, but I still was able to move in this. They took me in that barrack, 23, and that was terrible. 70, from 300, there was 300 in that barrack. Every day, 70 people died. in the morning. You know, in the morning we got up, we sat there. And I was there for a few days, but after a few days they took me out because I still was healthy to work.
You arrived in Ebensee not too long before the war was over.
Yes, I was there.
You got there in March of 45? Do you recall? Is that correct?
Well, 6 weeks. I was there 6 weeks, and I was liberated in May 6 or 8.
In May of 1945.
By May 1945.
Who were you liberated by?
I was liberated by the American.
The American Army?
Yeah.
You were approximately 18 years old when you were liberated.
When I was there, I wasn't yet 18.
Okay, 17. What was your physical condition at the time you were liberated?
Well, in comparison to the other one, I was able to walk. My father was in really bad condition. He was mentally, and the last few days before the liberation, oh yeah, that's important to say for me. And before the liberation, but 2 days before, a German, as Essman, says to some of our people, when they'll tell you to go in a certain place, they wanna burn you to death. Don't go. Don't go. And he saved a lot, and they gave the orders to go, and nobody moved. But it was so close that before the liberation, in fact, I was able to walk, and I went near the gates, and around there we were all with the wires, near the wires actually, and I see all the Germans, the Wehrmacht, this is the soldiers, the regular army, and he says to me, don't do anything foolishness. The Americans are only 2, 3, 4 hours away from us. You're going to be liberated. Please don't give us trouble. I'm an old man. He was maybe that time 55, and there's trouble. I couldn't even walk hardly. So anyway, so we sit down there, and I was waiting, and the American came in, and my father was, I remember, with me that time, and what you do first thing, you were so hungry, you run in the kitchen. I was able to go to the kitchen and take out flowers. That's all they had. And there was a bread too. I took a bread, and I took the flowers. The flowers was with sawdust, with little of was mixed with sawdust. I mean, it was just terrible. And so I took some water, and I mixed it, and I warmed it up, and my father ate that, and I ate that. Oh, how wonderful. And he got diarrhea. It was just terrible.
Once the Americans arrived, they gave you food and...
The American arrived. They did the best they could, but really it wasn't, because a lot of them died. It wasn't really organized. And they, at next day, first they took the very, very sick one, which they took my father away. And I didn't know where they took him. Me they took 2-3 days later, because my lungs was not in order, they took me in a hospital in Austria, Wolfgang See. And I was there few weeks, but it bothered me so much that I lived through with my father, and I am not with him. I was in the camp. I looked out for him, everything. All of a sudden, that I'm not with him. So I ran away from the hospital, went back to Ebensee, to the camp, and I start asking around where my father is. I didn't get good answer until I start making a lot of noise, and then American officer, one of the rank, and he told another soldier, I said, you take care of him and see that he'll find his father. Sure enough, I went, he took me, I found my father. He was very bad. He recognized me, he got all kind of illusions, this, that, it was, but, and it was pretty good. The hospital was as expected, but didn't have enough food. And I, at that time, of course, I went in a different city. I didn't have nowhere to sleep or this. So I was sleeping wherever I could. A barn, anything, went into it. And to get together, food like chazer, which is it's not kosher anyway. And I brought it to my father, and slowly he came his feet. Then they sent him away, because his lung was very bad, to another hospital, which was, the name of that hospital was Geuser in Austria, not too far from Bad Ischl.
And you were, I believe, in a DP camp, this place.
There was,
camp,
yeah, and then
at Bad Ischl.
Bad Ischl. First we were in Steinkogel. There was a displaced camp, and then and from there, I visited my father, where I went there in the morning. I stood there all day, and I came back to the camp. And from there, at that time, they liquidated that Steinkogel and sent us all to Bad Ischl. And
approximately how long?
But my father was
Ischl.
9 months in the hospital. I was there maybe 3 months, something like that.
When you came to the United States, where did you leave from? From what city? That was you went after Bad Ischl.
Yeah, after Bad Ischl, my father, of course, felt better. Mm-hmm. He had other problems, so he found out about Vienna. We weren't too far from Oya. There was the organization, the Agudas Yisrael, that figured maybe get himself a little job to work. And he did go there, and he was there in the Aguda, and after 6 weeks, I got there too, and we were together, and we lived that time in Vienna, Hanartre Gürtel 17. So it was a real bump hotel, bad, but it was okay.
you left Vienna and came then directly to the United States. Was your father with you at that time?
In Vienna, my father was working for the Agudas Israel. They know people there. There was a telephone call, and my father answered the phone, and he said, how would you like to talk to your brother, Chaim? This is the one, the brother was in Russia, and how would you like to talk to him? I love to and stuff, and didn't take like a half hour. They brought my brother to my father. We were together at the time. Okay.
And then from there?
And from there, well, in Vienna, I started going to school. After all, I was 18 and a half. I got to do something with me, and I started going to school, which at that time, the Germans, they paid for the schooling because I was young and this and that. And then I got a letter from my cousin from America. They found out through the Hayas that we are alive. And we were alive, so that they want us bring us to the United States. We got the letter, and I said, very nice of you, but I'm going to stay because I want to get some education. I don't want to come to United States to wash dishes. I want to do something more than that, because that's what they told me, that when you come to America, you're going to wash dishes, So, but you could take my brother and my brother. Anyway, she wrote another letter. How could you? But anyway, so I did.
When did you actually arrive in the United States?
October in 1947, I think October, by Marine Flesher. It was Marine Flesher.
And where did you eventually settle after you arrived?
We arrived. They kept us in the Hayas for a few days, and then my family sent tickets to Chicago. In Chicago, I arrived on a Thursday. A little disappointed because my relatives told me that there are plenty of schools in America. So I figured that probably I'll go to school. I had a factory job. They gave me right away on Saturday. I arrived Thursday, and for Saturday they already had the job for me. So I said, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to work on Saturday. And, you have to change this and this. Well, right now I won't change. Later I was going to be. Anyway, so they postponed it. I was working, I started working Monday.
And you eventually, I believe, went into your own business?
To business, yeah. And I was in the fabric business, and then in the drapery business.
In your years in Chicago, were you active in any Jewish organizations?
Well,
Or are you active now?
Yeah, B'nai Brit, with the Holocaust.
And you are a member of a synagogue?
Members of synagogues, yeah.
I have to ask you, Louis, why did you agree to this interview of the Shoah Foundation?
There's a lot of reasons for it. First thing, I really didn't want to be interviewed. I didn't want, but then I changed my mind. The reason is because, after all, the youngest one, the survivors, I think from Poland, I would be the one, because I was at that time 12 years old, and there's not too many lived through. And after me, there will be nobody to tell the story. So, and I know there's already denial that there were concentration camps that was not existing, things like that. And I am the living proof. Therefore, I am doing.
Is there anything that you would like to add before we conclude? Any particular thing that you left out perhaps before or thought about?
Well, being after 4 years being in the country, I married a wonderful wife, we got 3 children, and I have 13 grandchildren. One of the oldest daughter, her name is now Lola Sussman. She tried to have 10 children, as like my mother, and she succeeded. She had 8. Actually, she did have 10, but two were not living. So actually, she committed. She started, and I have wonderful grandchildren, very, very good and wonderful children.
Louis, on behalf of the Shoah Foundation, I want to personally thank you for participating in this interview. Thank you very much.
On the left, of my left, is a friend of mine. We met in Boysen Hospital. His name is Monik Zagorski. On my right, because that's a picture of mine, and the year is 1946.
Where?
That's in Badische,
Austria?
Austria. This is a picture, of course, my wedding picture of my wife, Shirley Linker, of course, of myself, of July 8, 1951. On my left, that's my daughter, Lola. She was about 12 years old. On the right, Mommy, my daughter. She was about 10 years. And my son, about 5 years old.
Where?
And this was taking place in Chicago. On my left, starting up with me, this pictures about 35 years. And next to me, of course, my wife, Shirley. Next is my mother-in-law, Shirley's mother, Eva Darren. Next is my brother Herman with his wife Sarah and her father. In the center, my son-in-law and my daughter Lola, my father Morris Linker. On the left, my daughter Maureen sitting down, my wife Shirley. Next is my stepmother, which she was a wonderful wife to my father, and my youngest son, Ellen.
What year?
It was 1975. 1977 is the wedding of my daughter Maureen. 1986 is the engagement of my son Ellen and Peggy. My father Morris Linker and his grandchild David Zussman in 1985.
Who is this woman?
This is my wife, Shirley.
As an American born, I truly tried in all the years of our 44 years of marriage to understand the ache and the inner stress that prevails with a Holocaust survivor. But at times it is difficult. There is an invisible barrier that cannot be erased. A Holocaust survivor is truly a survivor, one who tries to rebuild his life, and he may reach the point of comfort after working hard in his younger years, but yet you reach out, yearning for a lost childhood and a teenage era. You think of sisters and brothers who were deprived of life's offerings, and yet you wonder, I was the chosen one to carry on our family's heritage. I have always felt the undercurrents of my husband's anxiety, and as much as he tried to cover up and not exploit his inner feelings, they were there. This outlandish experience cannot be forgotten. It lingers in one's existence throughout one's entire lifetime. However, in spite of all these difficult memories, Lou did not allow his children to become victims of his past. He gave them an enriched Jewish education, and in each of their homes are filled with the true beauty of Jewish tradition. And our grandchildren attend Hebrew day school, and our eldest grandson, David, is now studying at a yeshiva in Israel. Our daughter Lola and her family live in Denver, Colorado. Our daughter Maureen and her family live in Skokie. Our son and his family live in West Bloomfield, Michigan. We divide our time in Chicago and Tamarack, Florida. And in spite of the distance, we are a closely knitted family